Hey guys, it's Dr. May. Thanks for joining me. Today I'm going to present a technique called REACTS, which is an acronym that could help us identify different categories of triggers that might be leading us to engage in certain target behaviors or problematic behaviors. So I think this is a good one. It's pretty useful. So I hope you guys will like it. All right, so here we go. So you could think about the word reacts as if, we're looking at our reaction to something. So what are the ways we react to things? We could look at this acronym here. So in my previous two videos, we talked about behavior chain analysis, which is a DBT technique, and the cycle of self-harm, which is a technique from Lisa Ferentz, who's a clinical social worker that works with trauma and self-injury. And both of those, what they have in common is that they look at like a sequential series of things that lead up to a target behavior. So all the different elements that kind of progressively build up and lead you to engage in something that is harmful. So this one's a little bit different. It's not a sequence. So REACT is more like categories. So it's just another lens to look through that might give you a different set of information than the first two. So it's not like you have to do one or the other. You could even do both or try one at one time and another at another time. All right, so just a quick review of terminology. So the term target behaviors is a DBT term, and it refers to the behavior we're trying to change. So this is the behavior that might be self-harming, might be eating disorders, aggression, it might be substance abuse. So whatever the behavior happens to be for you, it could be your target behavior. And it looks like a problem on the surface, but people engage in them for very valid reasons, such as to regulate their emotions and their arousal level, or to like communicate something to themselves or others, but a whole variety of things. But sometimes they feel good in the short term, but they're problematic in the longer term. So we're using these techniques to try to understand them better and to improve them and use healthier alternatives instead. So anyway, so this is the REACTS acronym. And if you want to take the screenshot, this is probably the one. Okay, so the R stands for relationship dynamics. So a lot of times relationships and the problems we have with them could be pretty triggering. So it's important to identify what were the relationship issues that were happening before I engage in my target behavior. And a lot of times there's emotions that build up. So what can I identify what the emotions were? Awareness of the five senses. So there's probably some kind of sensory related trigger. So what did I see, hear, smell, touch, or taste that might have increased my my feeling of desperation of needing to engage in this behavior? What was the context? Where was I? Who was I with? Is there something about an anniversary date or a time of the day, such as late at night when there's nobody around? Is there a certain location that might be associated with the behavior itself? So looking at all that is important. What was I thinking? What were the kind of thoughts that were going through my mind? And finally, somatic experiences. So what was going on with my body that made me feel more uncomfortable in my own skin and feel like I needed to do something desperately to make it better? All right, so what I'm going to do is show you this here. So you can create this yourself. It's not hard. It's just a table. You could do it in a journal. You could do it on a computer. And the idea is you could take a specific situation, or you could look at your pattern in general, either way. And you could go one by one for each element and describe what the trigger looks like for you. And then on the other column, you could think of what are some skillful ways I could use to cope with that trigger. So the next time it comes up, maybe I can handle it in a different way, and that'll prevent me from engaging in the target behavior, or maybe choose a healthier alternative. So this could be like a living document that you could continue to update as time goes on and different things happen or you get new ideas. Or again, you could do it event by event and collect them and see what you have in common and put a master list together, whatever works for you. Okay, so I'm going to do an example, and it's the same scenario that I discussed in the last two videos, but through the lens of REACTS. And as you'll see, we're going to come up with some slightly different things and different skillful behavioral alternatives because they're categorized differently. So just a trigger warning. So this example does involve a scenario where there's cutting. There's no pictures here, but there is discussion about it. So if that's triggering to you, or you think today's not a good day, where it would strike you the wrong way today, you don't have to finish the example. You could stop the video here. So use your best judgment on that one. Okay, so just a refresher. So again, it's the same story as the last two videos. So here's a scenario. So lately, I've been feeling kind of stressed about the holidays and being single again. I got an impulsive thought to look up my ex-boyfriend on Facebook, and I saw him in a picture with another woman who I assume is his new girlfriend. I got really upset and started spinning out, and before I knew it, I was in my room cutting myself. I cut deeper than I should have, and I had to go to the ER and get stitches. Now I feel like a jerk for taking a big step backwards after having not cut for 3 months. Okay, so we're going to, the story was fleshed out quite a bit, especially in the behavior chain video, but I'm going to refer to elements of that fleshed out story here to fill in reacts. Okay, so first, relationship dynamics. So clearly breaking up with my boyfriend a few months ago is something that was really hard for me, and maybe clearly not fully resolved. That could be very painful, and the holidays are coming up and new thoughts about it might be coming up for me. Then seeing the picture on social media and seeing that he moved on and he's in a new relationship is now reminding me of how I'm alone, because I'm comparing myself to where he's at, and it brings up all kinds of feelings. And also the reminder, I'm feeling single and lonely, even in general. So that's a relationship dynamic, or a lack of relationship. So all these things might be an undercurrent for a lot of what's going on in my life. So it's important to continue to think about these and process these to understand them better and work with them better. So here's just some sample coping strategies for the relationship dynamics. So I have to continue to work on grieving the loss of that relationship and maybe learning from what went wrong, you know, and so this way, maybe there's certain lessons I could take from this difficult situation that will help me in the future. Maybe part of it, and it's hard to tell the whole situation. Everybody's in a different situation, but maybe it'll be a reason to work on improving my relationship or interpersonal skills and my boundaries. And maybe that'll be something that I could gain from this. I might have to also work on radically accepting being single at this moment instead of just wishing I was with somebody. And maybe I have to get better at, meanwhile, just enjoying my own company, or figuring out how to live life by myself without a partner. And maybe perhaps also finding meaningful things to do with my time while I am single, so I feel more fulfilled, instead of just sitting around waiting for somebody to come along. Maybe I could take more active steps to do something that'll make me feel like I'm living a better life, even by myself. Okay, so these are just some examples of things that I could do to address my relationship dynamics. If I'm in therapy, maybe I'll continue to discuss that. On my own, maybe I could continue to journal about it or read books that'll help me. Okay, so emotions. So clearly there's a lot of emotions here. So some of the emotions discussed, especially in the behavior chain video where it was in a lot of detail, is sadness and loneliness, because I felt alone and single, especially at Christmas time, which is a time when everybody seems to be together. Frustration and anger. So I was angry that my boyfriend moved on while I'm still single. And anxiety and worry, wondering if I'll ever meet somebody and be happy. Is this going to last forever? Is it ever going to change and get better? Like, that's a big worry. And even shame and misery and feeling unlovable because I haven't had success in relationships. So a lot of emotions stirring around, and that can be very challenging to experience. So maybe I could also start to practice observing and validating my emotions instead of hating my emotions or trying to push them away in a way that's not going to work for me. Having more self-compassion, so compassion for the suffering that I'm having, and the fact that, yeah, this does hurt. Of course, it makes sense. Validating that. And problem solving for emotion. So this is a DBT emotion regulation skill. So if I look at each one, there might be certain things I could do that could help alleviate some of those emotions. So sadness and loneliness because I'm alone and single. So again, we could go back to maybe I could find meaningful things to do with my time that'll help reduce my sadness and loneliness, that make me feel more connected in a certain way. So the problem solving for each one might help to make them a little bit easier to bear and maybe less and stuff like that. Okay, tripping over my words here, guys. All right. So the A of reacts, awareness of 5 senses. So if I'm looking back at the scenario, okay, so sight, I'm looking at the social media feed of happy couples and families, which make me feel worse. And then I see a photo of my ex with his arm around a new girl. So the sight of those things, kind of painful, obviously. Sound, so sound of Christmas songs and shows on TV, sound of the music I was trying to listen to as a coping strategy. So in the first video, I referenced that one of the strategies used along the way was to listen to music. And in the course of listening to music on Pandora, a song came up that was triggering. So the sound of that escalated everything that I was feeling. Smell, in this case, doesn't seem to be much of a smell trigger, but sometimes there is. Sometimes, you know, it's a scent of someone's cologne that reminds me of a guy that really hurt me in the past or somebody that abused me. And the scent of that could be really triggering. Or it could be the scent of someone baking cookies and it reminds me of my grandma who died. And that's really painful. And then I feel lost in my grief. So you never know what the smell could be that could make you feel a certain thing, because our scents are really locked into our emotions and our emotional memory. So touch, maybe I'm even sensing the lack of touch, and that makes me feel lonely. You know, I wish someone was there to give me a hug or put their arm around my shoulder, and I'm just feeling the emptiness, the lack of that, and that could feel hurtful too. Taste. So in this original scenario, I was up late at night eating junk food and watching TV. And so the next morning I had a stomach ache and that didn't feel good. So the taste was maybe the junk food I was eating and all that kind of stuff. And that was part of what was going on here. All right, so some example coping strategies. So maybe make better choices about what I'm exposing myself to through my senses. So sometimes we just have to look at the triggering, the first piece here, like what am I even triggering myself with? Do I have to look at my social media feed? Do I have to watch happy people on TV and Christmas movies? Do I have to, you know, like eat the junk food? So maybe if I eliminate some of those original sources of those sensory experiences, it would be a little bit better. Maybe for the touch one, I could use self-touch in an appropriate way, cuddle in a cozy blanket, hug my teddy bear, you know, kind of do certain positive snuggling with myself and things like that to feel a little bit better. Maybe if I had a pet, I could snuggle with a pet. Please, this is a DBT skill to reduce vulnerability to negative emotions using the mind-body connection. So it stands for taking care of physical illness, managing, balancing your eating, avoiding mood-altering drugs, balancing your sleep and exercise. So that had to do with my eating a lot of junk food the night before. So it wasn't balanced eating. And then it led me to have a stomach ache and feel even worse the next day. So maybe eat healthier or eat less at night could be part of my taste problem solving. Okay, the C of reacts, context. Was there something triggering around the date, time, and or location? Yes. So Christmas season could be very triggering for a lot of people, holiday time, and all the comparisons that come up because of that. So in this case, it's Christmas time. I'm lonely, especially when I'm single. The time of the incident was in the morning. So after eating junk food and watching TV the night before, I woke up with a stomach ache, and then I ended up seeing my boyfriend on social media with the girl that morning, and then I cut myself. Location, I was home alone on a Saturday morning and facing an empty day with no real plans. So the fact that I was alone might have been important. If somebody was there, I probably wouldn't have done that. The fact that I had no plans might have made me even more vulnerable because I had nothing to look forward to that day besides just being alone. And the fact that I still had razors stashed in my bedroom, and the bedroom is a place where I usually cut. So it's important to look at, especially too, you know, why am I still holding on to the razors? If I'm trying to work on my self-injury, why do I still have this in my back pocket, so to speak? You know, what am I afraid of in terms of giving up that behavior? So that's an important exploration as well. You know, If you're truly committed, you wouldn't have that. But this is reflecting some mixed feelings I might have, some inner conflict and dialectics that are unresolved. So, looking at the pros and cons and, the different emotions I have around what it would mean to me if I were to give up this behavior is really important. But if I'm more committed, it would be important to throw away the razors so that they're not there when I am vulnerable. Because I might feel most of the time like it doesn't matter that they're in my drawer. I'm not going to cut anyway. But at a very vulnerable moment, the fact that they're there opens the door for me to engage in the behavior. Okay, other coping strategies. Maybe because I'm lonely, I need to start a new Christmas tradition this year. You know what? I can't just plan my traditions around what I always did or around the people that I expect to be there. Let me go out and do something different. So that might be really important this year. Doing a cope ahead plan for weekends, especially if I have downtime. Make sure that earlier in the week, I'm making plans, even if it's plans by myself, so that I have a structure in my day, so I have something to look forward to. And that in itself can make me less vulnerable. And if being in the house alone is too triggering, I should do opposite action and force myself to get out, even if I don't feel like it. Get out of the house, take a walk, drive someplace, go to a store, walk down to the neighborhood, coffee shop, whatever, get a cup of coffee at Starbucks, do something to not be in the house if I know that that's the trigger. All right. Next, thoughts. So there's a lot of painful thinking going on here, and that's adding to my suffering. So some of the thoughts that we highlighted in the first video were, how could he do that? Meaning my boyfriend. How could he find someone else so soon? Did I not mean anything to him? Then things like, I knew he didn't love me. I'm probably not that lovable. Shame thought. Nobody wants to be with me. No wonder I haven't found anyone else since we broke up. See, it's getting worse and worse and escalating. It's not fair that he gets to move on with his life and be happy while I'm still here feeling lonely and miserable. And then finally, before the self-injury, I can't stand it anymore. I hate myself. I hate my life. I wish I could disappear. So the thoughts and emotions escalate. They feed off each other. Things get worse and worse to the point where you feel like I can't stand it. So what do we do when we have painful thoughts? Here are a few examples of ideas. One is to recognize I have these thoughts that are bothering me and to deliberately take some actions to distract myself from my painful thoughts. So we could use the accept skill from the stress tolerance, and each letter stands for a different type of activity we could use to get our mind off of things. And if you persist with those activities and you fully put your mind into them, it could help take your mind off of your painful thoughts and give you a break from them. And by the time you stop the activity, you may not be as wrapped up in the painful thinking, and it might actually start to shift. So really important skill. So keep busy by doing positive distracting activities. Talk to somebody. One good way to get yourself out of your head is to find somebody you trust and talk to them. And you could talk to them about your problem or about something that has nothing to do with your problem. You could call up your grandma who has no idea that you're suffering and talk about, the old days and how we used to bake cookies together. And just talking about that might shift your mood. So it could be a conversation about something completely different, and that could even be a positive distraction. Stepping back from your thoughts and being mindful of them and not taking them as the truth. So if I'm really embedded in my thoughts, if I'm really fused with my thoughts, as they say in ACT, I might truly believe all the things that I was talking about before, such as I'm not lovable, I'm never going to move on with my life, I hate myself. All those things might feel very real to me just because I'm thinking them. But if I step back from my thoughts and I put them on the side and I say, well, isn't that interesting? I'm having a thought about this, or I'm aware of the awareness continuum in RODBT. I'm aware of having a thought that it's not fair that he gets to move on with his life. What's that all about? So now I'm putting some distance between myself and what I'm thinking, and it takes some of the power out of my thoughts and leaves room for possibilities that other ways of interpreting the situation could also be true, not just the thing that I thought of first. So very important to deal with that. So I could challenge my thinking. I could check the facts. Is it really true? Like that nobody loves me? Well, maybe that's not really true. Maybe there are friends that care about me, and I'm just not seeing that at the moment because I'm in so much pain. and think of other possibilities for what could be going on. So I knew he didn't love me. I'm probably not that lovable. Well, what's another possibility there? Maybe there's another reason why we broke up and it has nothing to do with whether or not I'm lovable. Okay, so really important stuff. But I would still say, like, if it's too hard to challenge your thoughts in the moment because you're too dysregulated, do something distracting. Okay, I think I need a sip of water here. My sippy cup. Okay, so somatic experiences. So from the night before, after all the staying up late, watching TV and eating junk, I'm feeling tired and I have a stomach ache. So that's making me a little more vulnerable in and of itself. And as I'm thinking all these things and feeling all these things and being exposed to the triggers, my arousal is increasing. I'm getting more hyper aroused. My heart's racing. I'm shaky. I'm flushed. I'm tense. I'm agitated. And all that adds to my dysregulation and discomfort. So how do I cope with the physical elements here? Well, first of all, preventative, please. So I could watch what I eat at night, eat less junk, get a better night's sleep. And that could definitely help in general. And the tip skill from DBT. So tip your temperature with ice, intensely exercise, paced breathing, paired breathing, progressive muscle relaxation, all that kind of stuff could help with my physical reality and arousal, and kind of bring me in a more comfortable place. Okay, so now that you're finished, so you filled out your chart with all the reacts and all the coping skills you could try. So you could try the coping skills now that you wrote them down and see how they work, see if they're working for you, if they're good, if they're not good, if you need to modify something, and see what you could learn for the next time. And, hopefully it'll be a good growth experience. Okay, so there you go. So that's reacts. I hope it's helpful and give it a try. See what happens. All right, guys, take care and I'll see you soon.